So today's video, we're gonna make some bagels and bialys. Bagels are a boiled dough and bialys are a baked dough using a similar formula or the same formula filled with onions or bacon or all sorts of different things, but I'm just gonna make all at once. In this bowl, we have bread flour. I do have some of the diastatic malt. I've got Himalayan sea salt, it's a little bit different color, and yeast. And in here I have water. This one you do need a mixer to make it. My dough temp for this one's about 22 degrees Celsius is what I'm going for. So I'm gonna get this on the mixer. It's pretty hard on the mixer because it's a low hydration, so you just have to be careful when you mix it. Okay, so the dough's come off the mixer and I was looking for 22. If you can see there, I'm at 22, 23. So you can see how stiff it is. It's a really stiff dough. I did 4 minutes on first speed and 4 minutes on second speed. So I've got an improved development on this. Basically, I'm gonna divide this immediately and round it. And then in 10 minutes, I'm gonna shape it. So.
Are you wearing my apron?
I have a lovely apron here that's my wife allowed me to use today. So 110 gram pieces. We'll round it, let it rest for 10 minutes, and then we'll go into the final shape of the bagels. And then it's overnight in the fridge. Okay, so this dough, just when you are trying to shape a stiff dough like this, it really doesn't want to do anything for you. So if your counter is a little dry, just a little tiny wipe of water helps the dough stick to the counter, and then you can actually start to round it. Or I actually, with this, is so stiff, the hydration's so low, I just use the sides of my hands to bring that seam down to the bottom to get surface tension. And that's it. We'll let those rest for 10 minutes. So we're just gonna, this has been a 10-minute rest. We're just gonna do our final shape on the bagels and the bialys. Basically the bialys we just leave like this overnight. Just pop them on here. Parchment paper with pan spray on top so it doesn't stick. When you do cold fermentation in the fridge, humidity will absorb, so they tend to get sticky. So I'm gonna take those three and just pop them there. Tomorrow we'll do the final shape on those. And this is, I guess, sort of like a pre-shape on these bagels. So there's two different ways to do it. It's probably more, but I usually just make a hole in the center, kind of like a donut. And this is really tight dough. Still, it's relaxed a little bit, and I just sort of started elongating it gently, not stretching, not trying to tear too much of that surface tension that we created to get a shape. Don't worry about getting your full shape. This dough is so elastic right now. But overnight, it's going to get more extensible. And then tomorrow, before we boil it, we're actually going to pull it out a little bit more. So if you get kind of to about there, I think it's pretty good. Okay, and just over here, sometimes I give it a little squish. Depends if you want to make a sandwich or if you want like the round hole in the center. Sometimes you can go a little tighter. The other way you can do it too, and you see this a lot more in the Chef Bergoli likes these ones better, Montreal style. Okay. And again, because this dough is so cold or so dry, I'm just gonna get some water on the table and on my hands. Okay. And I'm just gonna roll this out into a log shape. And even this, I just use regular, I guess it's organic bread flour. But bagels often use like a high gluten flour as well. So something that's even more higher protein content than bread flour. So when you get to about here, you can just wrap this around your hand and just slightly overlap and then roll that together. Okay, so it's pretty difficult there because the dough's a little bit stiff, but you can pinch it together. And you'll see the guys in the bagel factories, they're doing 2 at a time like this and rolling it around. And they're really rustic, right? Mm-hmm. Right, Vero? Yeah. Very rustic. Yeah. Okay. So I prefer this one.
Me too.
Okay, I think it looks nicer compared to these rustic ones, but they both are gonna taste really good tomorrow. Good morning. So just when you put your bagels and bialys in the fridge overnight, make sure that you pan spray the top and cover them quite well. I did have these completely wrapped, so that way they won't get a skin on it. Even that, in that case, I did get a little bit of a skin on it. So you can see the bagels that we did, the one where I did the hole through it. It has a really nice shape. The more rustic one is much more rustic looking. And for the Bialys, I just rounded these, and I'll show you the shape, the final shape on those. But basically, you want to pull almost like a gluten window in the center. So I just rotate, thumbs in the middle, and start developing a pocket with a ridge on the outside. And you just keep working it out, start to stretch it a little bit, but mostly the dough's fairly extensible right now because of the really long cold fermentation overnight in the fridge. So these are nice things to help manage your time as a baker. You can have some stuff baked, ready to go in the oven first thing in the morning. I bake these around 230, 220. So at home, I'm gonna go for about 435 today, this morning, and give that a shot. And I can bake my bagels and my Bialys at the same time. Okay, so if you do, this one here is elongated quite well. If it's too tight, there's a lot of tenacity. That's a word I haven't used much in this class yet, but tenacity. The dough will come in as it bakes and then push up and push your filling out. So sometimes I start the elongation and then I just go back to it. Okay, I'm gonna come back to these in a second. For the bagel, I do want to if I go with this too, the tenacity too will just shrink this together and we lose that pocket. So I do like to open this up just a little bit in the morning, but this is more of a preference. Some people do like the bagels a little bit tighter if you're gonna put like make a sandwich out of it or something. So this one here, Daryl's like, no, I like it with the whole big hole.
No, I like the small hole.
Oh, you like the small hole?
Yeah.
Okay, I won't elongate that one too much. You don't need to do it too much. You're gonna see that this is a tight dough, so it will tighten up. Last thing I'm gonna do is just finish up the Bialys, and I'll get that other one done in a second. But just brush some olive oil on these guys. So the olive oil is the steam on this one, and when we do the bagels in a moment, the steam from that is from the honey water that we're gonna boil them in. Okay, so there's no need to steam these guys. I just did straight up onions. I didn't have any bacon at home, so good heaping teaspoon of the onions in there. And my hands were washed thoroughly before this demo started, so I'm good there. And a little bit of Maldon salt I find around the outside. So the fun thing with these Bialys, this is kind of like the classic one with some onions, but you can do all sorts of different fillings if you want. You can get creative with it. And I do just dust a little bit of flour on the outside edge too, just for kind of an appearance. Okay, so we're gonna go over and boil the bagels next and get these set up for the oven. Okay, so we got honey water going here. This is 6 parts water to 1 part honey. When you do this, and you can bring it to a nice hard boil. Be careful when you first boil the honey because this will bubble up and foam up, and you have to skim off that foam. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we can place all these guys in here. If your bagels don't float, these ones are floating, so that's good. If they don't float, leave them out at room temperature for like another half an hour, maybe a little bit longer, because when they float, that tells us that they're proofed. If they're sinking, there hasn't been enough fermentation, so, but usually overnight it's not a problem. Okay, I usually go about 10 to 15 seconds on each side. I use some chopsticks, kind of like donuts that you did with Chef Leo. Chopsticks to flip these guys. Another 10 seconds, and then we can bring them out just using a slotted spoon, and then onto a draining cooling rack. I'll turn the light on. Flip it back to the right side up. Then if you wanted to do one seated as well, you let these cool down just a little bit. Again, my hands, over the years, I don't have much feeling left in them. So I can pick up things when they're hot, but you can drop it into your seeds. And then you have your seeded bagel. I think I just need a little bit more in there. I'm just conserving my sesame seeds, so usually put quite a bit in there, and then you can just transfer it back onto the tray that you use for proofing. And these guys can go onto there. I'm just gonna do plain. I like plain. Plain's the most popular. And you can see the finished Bialys. We're gonna get this in the oven, probably about 20, 22 minutes. Get a nice dark bake on them. So I've just pulled these out of the oven. So I did a good enough extension on these Bialys. You can see that it still actually contracted a lot and shrunk, as did the bagels here as well too. Color on here is nice. This is good color on here. Some of the darkness is from the honey water too. But you want to make sure once these cool down a little bit. Right now the crust is going to be pretty crispy, but once they cool down, they're going to get nice and chewy. So usually when I'm done, I just transfer them over here, let them cool down. This is my discard. My sourdough is ripe now, but so when I discard and feed it, I'm just doing like a pancake, I guess, but like a little pan bread with it. And it's just really super, super tangy and super sour. So something you can do with your discard. Other people use it to make waffles or pancakes or all sorts of things like that. You can add it to different things. But anyhow, there you go. There's your bagels. Breakfast is ready.